Recapping our top story, 13 people injured, including 8 dead following the latest terror attack taking place in lower Manhattan, not too far away from the World Trade Center, the deadliest attack since 9/11, and still a lot of questions that are still left to be answered. Joining us now in studio to talk more about this is our political commentator and analyst, Lee Bynes, also the owner of Retrovision Media. And Lee, good to have you.
Good to be back.
Let me talk about this first and foremost. Since we talk about this attack, we of course said it's the deadliest since 9/11. But given the fact that you see a gentleman who's able to rent a truck and then be able to ride down the west side of Manhattan, first of all, let's talk about New Yorkers and the feeling that it gives to New Yorkers at a time such as this.
Well, I think we should all definitely be concerned because we've spent trillions of dollars, literally trillions of dollars since these terror incidents began. And I don't want us to go, I can take it back further than 9/11. We can go all the way back to 1993 during the Clinton administration. So we've had about 24, 25 years, 3 presidents, all of them 2 terms, and yet we're still facing this issue. With regards to security in the city, I understand that the mayor, the police commissioner, the governor are doing all they can to assure citizens that they're safe. But the method of operation that ISIS, Al-Qaeda, and groups of that ilk are utilizing right now are very, very difficult to stop. The lone wolf activity is escalating. These attacks in terms of using vehicles, small weapons and things like that have been commonplace in Europe, France specifically, and hopefully this is a sign of things to come.
Give me a little bit about this because we're talking right now about lone wolf. Right
Yeah.
now we understand that the term quote-unquote lone wolf is being used that the suspect pretty much acted alone.
Yes.
However, yet and still we know that there's this radicalization movement that's going on here domestically. We've heard about it in Boston with the Boston Marathon. We have it now, the New York City Marathon, only a few seconds away. And the concern is about those people who've been radicalized. Talk about the radicalized movement because that's exactly what police are trying to investigate right now, and authorities are trying to determine how many people are connected, if any, to this radicalized movement and what possibly could be playing out given the fact that you got the marathon literally this week.
Well, again, it all falls back to the security and how they want to approach this issue. The radicalization of these people is happening on a digital platform now, so they don't necessarily need to leave the country, go to Syria, go to Iraq, go to where North Africa, West Africa, to participate. It seems as though that ISIS, because they, for the most part, have been decimated in Raqqa and Mosul and have been kicked out of those areas, or at least they don't have the staging areas anymore, they've gone global. And because they've gone global, they're able to reach out and train people online, tell them exactly what they need to do in order to carry out these acts. This individual was from Uzbekistan, a satellite of the former Soviet Union, currently the Russian Federation. He came over here 7 years ago, been here since 2010. I believe the last known address that we've been able to discern so far was out of Florida, and he came up north and spent some time in New Jersey and decided, one can only speculate as to why, that he decided to take this action on this day. But moving forward, it's going to be unfortunate, but because we don't want to turn America into Fortress USA, where there's checkpoints on every other street, armed soldiers and officers with long guns standing around. I mean, that's not exactly what's called a free and open society anymore. But it looks as though that we may be headed in that direction for the foreseeable future until they get a handle on this.
Let me ask the question here.
Certainly.
New Yorkers were on the right end. Some were divided about yesterday. We knew that yesterday was the Halloween parade. And many New Yorkers feel as though that it was the right thing to do to go ahead. The Governor Cuomo saying, listen, we're not going to be defeated by terrorism. We're gonna have the parade. It's going to be safe. Let's go to parade. I'm going to the parade. On the other hand, you've got other people who say, listen, you know what? There's victims involved in this. We haven't given enough time to even mourn or respect the victims. There's this growing controversy. What side of the fence do you sit on?
Well, you know what? I don't want to. I have to say that I'm kind of like perplexed on this one, only because of the fact that there is a need to show those who want to harm this country, that no matter what you do, you're not going to affect the way that we live. We want to maintain how we live every day, how we play, where we go, and the things that we do, and not feel intimidated. On the other hand, the city officials and those who are in charge of security have an obligation to make sure that various events like the Halloween parade last night and the upcoming marathon is going to be safe to attend. Now, what happened in Boston and what's been happening around the world right now, it's a gambling game. And that's one of the reasons why the nation is spending literally a fortune in security for to shore up defenses for soft targets, because that's what America is right now. It's a soft target. We go to malls, we go to movies, we go to parks and different things like that, and it's impossible to secure them all to the state where you can go out and enjoy yourself with 100% surety that you're going to be safe.
I was listening to the governor coming in, and he pretty much was saying that with the marathon being a 26-mile stretch, that there is no foolproof way to safeguard against a 26-mile stretch. And I understand, what you have to do with regards to that, because you're limited in what you can do in regards to safety. So a marathon becomes a soft target. Sporting events do become soft targets, and of course all eyes will be fixed on the marathon. But we did say there'll be increased security for this upcoming marathon, given the wake of what's happened just now. Let's take sweep down to Washington, D.C. right for a second. What are we to make of the president, who's made his comments about, first of all, giving condolences to the victims and New York City, but also at the same time saying that this is the responsibility of Senator Chuck Schumer and the legislation that he put forward, that putting it on the backs of Senator Schumer. One would say that it's a little bit out of order to politicize something so soon, so raw, but yet and still the president still finds it okay to be able to do that.
Well, that's pretty much in character for 45, if you will. Anytime that he can find an opportunity to take a dig at the previous administration and how things were done before he became the president, if I'm forced to say that. I think it is a little too early to, or it probably is never a good idea to politicize events like this, because no one is at fault. Everyone is doing their level best in order to prevent these incidents from happening. The fact that it happened on his watch in his town was probably one of the reasons that he wanted to do a little criticizing, to take the look off of himself.
Well, when we talk about the legislation that was introduced, the first thing that comes to mind is the fact that the legislation was introduced by Senator Schumer, and there were other people that were co-signers. It was a bipartisan bill. And in addition to it being a bipartisan bill, the final sign-off was by President George H.W. Bush. So when you talk about this isn't just, it might have been introduced by one, but it's a bipartisan bill. And so the equality needs to be stated fully, but yet and still, we still have this controversy of politicizing, and we still haven't even found out the names of all the victims. We do understand that you have 5 that are deceased from Argentina. We're still finding out more about those who are being deceased. But given the fact that we don't have all this information, the fact that we're talking political in this moment, but when you're a New Yorker, you're saying, man, we're in mourning.
Well, you know what? When this bill was written and it passed through legislation and it became policy, we were at a different point in terms of the political 100% total brouhaha that's been going on. We had in 2010 we had a moderate, reasonable president in office. Right now, that is not the case. Today, we're confronted with. I don't want to continue the narrative that he's an unstable force and maybe taking things over the top, but that's where we are right now, and that's one of the reasons why this politicalization is taking place. How can it be avoided at the point? That's yet to be determined, because Donald Trump is Donald Trump, and anybody that opposes his idea are confronted by the conservative media is saying, well, that's Trump being Trump. And but I'm not sure that that's necessarily a positive thing for America right now.
Would you agree? Someone have said the sentiment, given the fact that this has happened again, the World Trade Center, the first time in 1993, second the World Trade Center bombing
2001,
in 2001, and now this, 3 acts of terrorism that have come, that there's a sense that even amongst New Yorkers, some of us are numb, and it's almost like the new normal, if you will, that this is an expectation. Talk to us about the mentality of New Yorkers. We hear about the resiliency of New Yorkers, but honestly, when we talk about these acts of terror, there's a new mentality, certainly now, as opposed to before.
I definitely agree with that, but I would expand that argument to include the fact that possibly I think Americans, New Yorkers especially, because the most devastating terror attack happened here in this city. But I think authorities would be, because it's better serve the community if they educated us more as to why this is happening. We know what is happening. We know where it's happening. We know this issue is metastasizing across the world. It's in Northern Africa, Western Africa, the Philippines, Malaysia, and it seems to be expanding as opposed to shrinking as a result of all of the money, the funding, the security that's being put in place. But it's not. So I think if we had an idea of why these incidents are happening, what's motivating these people beyond just saying that, oh, well, they're being radicalized, but what's driving them to the radicalization process, what's placing these young men mostly in the position of saying that, or seemingly they have no other alternative but to conduct these types of acts to make their points known. So until we reach a point where the authorities can tell us definitively what the heck is going on and why, I think we'll always be nervous about it.
Lee Bynes, our political analyst, we thank him for joining us here on Open, and you can catch Lee every week here with us to bring us the latest in political news. Listen, stay with us. We'll be back with more show. Coming right back right after this.